Hello everybody! It is officially the end of October, which means we are in Nano season. It is here. It is upon us. So if you're unfamiliar with NaNoWriMo, it stands for National Novel Writing Month. So typically the way it works is that writers take the month of November to try and write 50,000 words in 4 weeks. The reason it's 50,000 words is because typically that's kind of like the minimum word count to be like considered a novel. So if you write 50,000 words, you've written enough to be able to call that a novel length work. Now, obviously, if you write in other genres, like 50,000 words is not a book. Like if you write science fiction or fantasy, you're probably looking more at anywhere from like 75K to 100K. If you've never done a NaNoWriMo, it's really cool, it's really fun, and it's this really unique experience where you see all of these other writers around the world who are writing at the same time as you. You're all kind of like in the trenches together. I think that's kind of one of the appeals of doing Nano. A really great time to kind of dedicate yourself to writing because you have other people who are doing it with you, so you kind of have that support system. I have tried to do Nano before. I tried to do it last year and I did not hit 50,000 words. I don't even know how much I wrote that month. My typical output is like 20 to 25K a month, so I probably did a little bit more than that, but I definitely didn't hit that 50K mark. And I think I've learned over the years that the traditional Nano format just like doesn't work for me. I don't really like it. I've tried to do it many times since I was a kid. But I think word count goals in general, they just tend to be there's too much pressure. I feel like they've never really worked for me. Even now when I'm just drafting a book normally throughout the year, I try not to focus too much on the word count because it's really stressful. But I still think, despite that, it can be a valuable experience. So I am going to be doing like a modified NaNoWriMo. And even when I've done Nano, like back when I was in high school or back when I was in university and I was like busy with schoolwork and I knew that I couldn't commit to a 50,000 word count goal, I still found other ways to kind of join in on the NaNoWriMo festivities, I guess. So I'll be talking about some of the things that I've done in the past and some ideas for alternatives, and I'll be talking about my modified NaNoWriMo goals as well. I still will be dedicating the month of November to like buckling down and writing because September and October were not productive for me in that regard. So yeah, I'm still really excited. Let's get into it. Let's do this again. Take 2. All right, we're back. So I'm gonna start with talking about the main goals that I have for Nano this year. So instead of doing the traditional 50K word count goal, I have 2 main things that I want to get done this year. I don't want to see, okay, here's the other thing. I don't really want to see it as like a win or lose thing, because usually it's like people always say like, oh, I won Nano this year, or I failed or lost Nano this year. And for me, I just don't really like to use that kind of mindset, I guess. It's not really helpful for me, and it puts like a lot of stress, undue writing stress that I feel like I don't really need. But the first thing that I hope I can do this year for Nano is to make significant progress on Project Night, which is my second fantasy novel that I've been writing. That's kind of the hope, that's the plan. I'm about 50% of the way through it right now. So the draft is currently sitting at 45,000 words. I anticipate that it will be another 50,000 words until the end. So technically, if I do want to finish it by the end of November, then I will effectively need to write 50,000 words. Obviously, like in an ideal world, it would be nice to get to the end of it, like the end of the draft by the end of November. Like that would be amazing, but I'm not really gonna put that pressure on myself. So my tentative, more realistic Nano goal is if I can make it to maybe halfway through Act 3 or maybe the climax point of the book, I think would be a more realistic goal. So not, holy crap, the sun. We just turned white. What the heck? The more realistic goal that I have is to to reach like kind of that midpoint climax point of Act 3. And I think that's a little bit more realistic, or at least I hope it's a little bit more realistic. My goal is to use the rest of October to kind of like finish off Act 2 or to make significant progress in Act 2 so that I have pretty much all of November to write the third act. And there technically is an Act 4, but it's like smaller compared to the other acts, so I don't really count Act 4 as its own full act. It's kind of just like an extension of Act 3. So yeah, that is the Project Night plan. I will do my best. Obviously, September and October haven't been the best months in terms of my productivity and output, so I'm hoping to kind of channel the NaNoWriMo energy and collective support system, and hopefully that will fuel me in my writing. It will like help me a little bit more because yeah, I think I typically will average like 20,000 to 25,000 words a month. That was like the numbers that I was doing earlier this year when I was drafting the last book, but I just feel like this year has been, drafting for this book has gotten a lot more difficult, and my word count output is like not the same. I think I probably wrote less than 10,000 words last month, so I'm really hoping I can improve those numbers for November. The second goal that I have for Nano is to finish one short story. So this is kind of like a sub goal. I would say that Project Night is still the main priority. So if I don't get to the short story, it's not a huge deal for me. I have 2 short stories that I'm currently actively working on right now. One of them is a contemporary coming of age short story that takes place in the Philippines called Merienda. And I also have another short story called Songs of the Era, which is currently in its 3rd draft. I started writing that one earlier this year, and I've talked about it before. My short stories and just like my short fiction in general never get priority when it comes to like my writing priorities. Like it always just like gets shifted down. It would be nice if I could work on either of them, because I never usually work on them unless I'm like really fed up with my book drafts. I also think it'll just be nice to give myself like another option for like if I don't feel like working on Project Night, at least I have another writing project that I can like fall back on. I think it will also be useful to kind of like develop my short fiction writing skills. Writing a novel and then writing short fiction are like 2 different things, and I've always focused on the novel writing over, you know, my short fiction skills. Perhaps that will be something that I can work on this month as well. There are some other things that I used to do back when I was a student that was still writing related, but it wasn't like straight up writing 50,000 words in a month, because that was never realistic for me. Whenever like my schedule will just never allow for that kind of output. I think one alternative is you could try doing flash fiction or poetry. So I had one year, I can't remember how long ago it was, but there was one year where instead of like writing like a book or short stories or whatever, I basically just wrote flash fiction every day. So I would do like 100, 200 words every day, and it was just kind of like a writing exercise thing. I'm not a huge like poetry person, but I know that that's also another alternative, is like some people do a poem a day, which I think can be really fun if you are into poetry or if you want to try your hand at poetry. Another option is also journaling every day. I am like really shit at keeping journals or diaries, and I've just like never been a journaling person. Like I just don't really enjoy journaling personally. I don't really like writing about myself. It's like weird for me to do that, but that is technically writing. It is kind of like creative nonfiction, and I've tried my hand at creative nonfiction before, and it can be really fun. Creative nonfiction / journaling was definitely an exercise in pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So I think that's definitely an option. The third option you could do, and this might not be for everyone, but you could write fan fiction. I know a lot of people use NaNoWriMo to buckle down and to write their fan fiction projects. I know people like write like novel length works for fan fiction, and I think that there are honestly a lot of really great creative benefits to writing fanfic instead of original fiction. I know that that's like a touchy subject for some people, so spoiler alert, I actually am going to be planning a whole other very intensive discussion on the whole fanfiction debate within the book community, because I have been like wanting to dedicate a whole video about fan fiction. I personally have pretty positive thoughts on fan fiction, and I have a lot of thoughts on how it can actually benefit you as a writer, especially if you're like earlier in your writing journey. I think that could also be a really great way to practice your writing during the month of Nano without necessarily having to commit, especially if you're someone that kind of skipped out on Preptober and you didn't really plan what you wanted to do for Nano, and suddenly November is here. Like, just dipping your toes in fan fiction is actually a great way to kind of like participate in Nano if you procrastinated during October. Or honestly, you could just spend NaNoWriMo like doing a little bit of everything, you know? Like, as long as you're doing something writing related, I don't think it really matters what you actually do this month or what you actually achieve. I don't know. I've been doing like Nano on and off since I was a kid, and I think that there are just a lot of different ways that you can participate in the festivities this month without necessarily having to commit to writing 50,000 words of a book, because it's hard. It's definitely hard. That is all I have for today. If you guys are participating in NaNoWriMo this year, I would love to know. Fingers crossed that I can do even a fraction of what I said that I was going to do in this video. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try really hard. I'm going to try to put out at least one Nano vlog. If I can do 2, that would be cool. I'm super, super pumped for Nano this month. I hope all of your writing endeavors are going well. Okay, that is all. Happy NaNoWriMo, and I will see you guys in the next video.